most of the things that drive us crazy about customer service is done on purpose, right?
Hello. Thank you again for joining me, Amas. I'm really excited. Everyone, again, I'm Shauna, just in case you were wondering. And Amas here is going to give us some more insight into his book, Waiting for Service.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So I liked last time when I started on the quote, so I'm going to start you on a new quote, which was one of my favorite lines in the book. I had a few of them. And that was, I used to say I was stuck in an abusive relationship with American Airlines. So, now, is it that you just didn't want to? We were talking before about Southwest being better. Why do you keep going back to this abusive relationship?
So, no, it's true. So the sick part about the airline industry, particularly here in the States, is we have a handful of options, and they all have their regions based on where you live. So I live in the middle of the country. I live in Oklahoma City. And so I even have less choices depending on where exactly it is I'm going. So all that means if you live in Oklahoma City and travel as much as I do, by the time the year is over, you will have made your way through most of the airlines, unless you want to take long trips to get there. But it's also an apt description because like many abusive relationships, right? I start to lie to myself when it's over. Like, okay, and then I get the points and the free drinks, the down. I'm like, oh, okay, they've changed. They send me the brochures. They give me the new lines. I'm like, yep, going back. It's going to be different this time. And just as soon as F me, this is the same old American Airlines. But that's true, and this is why it's incredibly important that there's choice, right? And that the market is allowed, to continue to generate choices. Because if you don't, like if I know, then what are you going to do? Leave me for another crappy airline? What do you think that happens, right? It reduces quality, right? It reduces the ability for things like customer service to improve the less choices you are, which is why, you see that the services gets a lot worse the less there is competition, and the more it's a necessity. And sadly, you see that in healthcare, right, where you are sort of trapped in whatever insurance you have, and I know it's nationalized there in the UK, or governmental services. So it's the less options, or your cable companies, right? So that's in part why those relationships are allowed to go on.
What is it that you think is the main sticking point? Especially, let's stick to the airlines for now. We can look at, you can talk about any other industry, but what is it about, I guess, American Airlines specifically that makes them so bad?
Yeah, no, so it starts early and often, right? If we just think about the things we've just accepted as a way of doing business, I think about some subtle decisions when you kind of think about service. Think about how the plane is boarded. I don't mean to nerd out on the audience, but you don't need to be any sort of math genius or anything to figure out that is the least efficient way to board the plane, right? But no, that's not why they do it that way. They're doing that way because, right, for other reasons, to incent you to fly more with them so that you too can get free champagne when you fly. Think about customer service and when flights are delayed and what that interaction looks like, right? You will get they didn't used to reach out to you, But now they will call you or they will text you, hey, your plane's out. I'm like, oh, this is fantastic. Oh, these guys are changing. Small
Mm.
problem. If you say, all right, yeah, let me speak to a customer service rep. Well, your wait's going to be an hour and 25 minutes. I go, how did you call me to tell me you were not ready to talk to me? How is this even possible? You started this. And then if you go, and I can go on and on and on and on. And it's and here to me is the most insulting part of this. And let me take a small detour here. We then had COVID, and
Yeah.
there were lots of companies and industries that needed a bailout. And I'm looking at you, the American government. Did you talk to any customers when you decided to bail out the airlines? Most of us would have been fine if they all went bankrupt. We hate them. Are you kidding me? You did not bail out the guy who sells the gyros next to my house. I don't know why he's out of business. And you kept American fucking Airlines? Who asked you for that? I didn't ask you to bail them out. We all hate them. Let them go bankrupt. Anyway, my point is, it's because of this enablement that allows them to continue to do this. And what are you going to do? Just go to their also terrible competition? We need new blood in that industry.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I really do, because again, I'm thinking about the differences between the airlines that I have here in terms of variety. I have the benefit of living in the south of England, so I'm from London. So obviously everything's around London. I think we've got like 3 airports close to us, and if your flight doesn't go from that one, it will go from that one. So it's never really that far. So I'm maybe a bit spoilt for choice. But I've been to America once, and it frustrated me. I was like, what is this? I could not check in online because they decided that I need to go through an additional security check, which means I go through airport security, they scan, they check my bag, then I get to the gate and I just want to get into my seat and off to my holiday. And you're telling me, no. You gotta have your bag checked again. Like the people in security didn't already do that. Like, what is that about?
Exactly.
What is that about? We don't have that over here. Is that an American thing, or is that just not a British thing?
Yeah, I've not flown a lot domestically in the UK. I have a little, but most of my flights are Heathrow, right? Like
Yeah.
international. But for the handful of times I have, the flights I made post 9/11, I will say our system here is uniquely broken in that place, right? Like, and the expectations aren't set clearly. You need an advanced degree to navigate flying in the United States. Like, and I, as a freaking flyer, would get annoyed at people. Oh God, is today your first time flying, right? But I have to subconsciously remember, nope, yep, probably is, right? Because there are these very annoying little things. And again, it's fine that we have a different deal, but no one lays it out for you. When you buy your tickets, you go here, like, so you get to this airport and you're just made to feel like an idiot / criminal the whole time. I mean, at the end of by the time you get in, you start wondering, maybe I am smuggling something. Maybe there is something in my bag, right? Did I leave my, you start to like really believe it. And whereas if someone has just laid it out for you that says, hey, you would go here, then this will happen. Perhaps if there were some coordination and consistencies, right? So depending on what airports, it's all over the place. So I do think we have a uniquely screwed up. Well, they're all screwed up. Ours is uniquely screwed up in its own weird ways.
Is it possible to unscrew up the screw up? Now
Within
within
the airlines?
Yeah, within the airlines specifically.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that the market just needs to do what it does, and we, the consumer, needs to sort of do what we do, and hopefully the government would just get out of it and actually allow the market to do what it does. What do I mean by that? I think as there are advances in other forms of transportation, there's talk about bullet trains and what have you. There's talk about, I mean, why are people flying, for example, from San Francisco to Los Angeles? There should be a train, which places like Europe are more advanced in that kind of area. Needs to be more choice, right? We have a fairly big country geographically speaking that you have to get to. And for now, you're either driving or you're flying. Our rail systems are a mess. So I think as the market brings more of those things into play,
Mm.
uh, I am not optimistic that there will be new players into the airline industry. If they'd let some of them go bankrupt last year, perhaps, and by perhaps, they've allowed them to restructure and have new airlines. So I'm not optimistic on that front, but I hope that there's pressure there. But at the end of the day, you have a vote and I have a vote to choose to take my money elsewhere, right? Like it'll get to a point where you're like, you know what? I will just drive. You know what? I'll just go on a train. You know what? I'm not doing this anymore. So I think we can put that pressure by where we choose to spend our dollars.
I agree. We got to know where our buying power is. Buying power is uniquely empowering to the individual and their voice. Whereas,
Right.
if you're just online, you're not really doing that. And one of the other things you said about like kind of tying into this is you said in the book they opted to get more revenue by passing on their frustrations to their customers. So you were talking about them choosing to say, okay, your luggage doesn't come as part of your ticket, for example. Now you have to pay separate if you want to have holding luggage or if you want to choose your seat. And I actually remember that happening. I remember being like, I have to pay to choose my seat. Like, what is this? Um, but for me, when I read that, I was like, so they've passed the frustration. So either way, it's still frustrating to the customers. So they haven't actually done anything, but we're still paying more for it. So that
Yeah, yeah,
buying power is a bit skewed.
yeah. So you saw it in different. I think to me the most egregious one was what happened with check-in luggage.
Mm,
You know, it was this. Believe it or not, most airlines are not profitable, which that you would go for all the monies I'm paying for tickets, and we
mm,
can get to that later. So they wanted to sort of increase that. So they thought, hi, we got to charge someone to carry on their bags. Well, what they did is they made it so that you had to pay to check in your bags, but it was free to carry it on. Well, they've started squeezing that balloon too. But if you just know anything about flying, you would know that is upside down
mm.
because the people who never check in bags are people like me. I wouldn't no. If I'm traveling on business, the bag's in there. But you know what? I'm also traveling on business. So if you ask me to pay to carry on my bags, I would pay. I would, again, the business travelers are the most profitable ones because it's not the individual who's paying, it's a company or what
Company.
have you. It's corporate. So
Mm,
if you really just wanted to raise money, you would say, okay, it's free to check in your bags, but it costs to carry it on. The business travelers will pay it and everyone will be on their way. But instead, they were worried, gosh, if one airline does it, what if the other ones don't? Then the corporate travelers might get poached. Whatever their rationale is, they flipped it. So guess what happens? I am a family of whatever, or family of six. We take one trip a year, da da da. I cannot afford to pay an additional $25 each for all the bags that we're going to check in. So guess what? We're going to carry it on to
yeah.
save some money, which then clogs the line, which then makes the TSA line. This is the reason why you go to TSA and you go, why did they have this massive suitcase there? In some cases, it just comes down to it's free to carry it on versus but then it delays everything. The line's now slow. We're now waiting for service again. Da 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 da. Your odds of missing your flights now increases because so that's those are the kinds of things where the thoughts about profits, etc., then increases. So that they're increasing profits at the expense of frustrating customers and making
Mm.
customers wait some more. So I could go on, but every time they have these decisions to make, and I don't claim to believe that you can have your cake and eat it too. Yeah, you've got to like find it somewhere, but it just seems like time and time again, it's the service that takes the brunt of
Mm.
the heat.
It really is actually. It's kind of like you stuck between a rock and a hard place, really, because either way. I mean, I'm going on a long haul flight. Of course, I'm going to take a suitcase. I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks. Surely that should come as part of the price. So
Right.
all of a sudden you have to pay more for your holiday. I definitely think that airlines don't necessarily believe they have to think about their customers. If they're not making money off our airline tickets, why do they keep staying in business? Like, why are they still here? Like, why are they still serving us?
Yeah, yeah, great question. There's lots of play there, but in the end, specifically, the thing you have to understand about airlines, or frankly, any other industry, human beings, when they compete,
Mm.
there's always a sort of revision to the mean. Always, they end up being just a few percentage better than each other. So I think that let's go back to Southwest Airlines, which was actually profitable. Whatever. They had a business model that was very sort of unique and very different. Of course, there are good parts, there are bad parts to it. But what Southwest Airlines did was it started to influence the other airlines. So, for example, right, Southwest Airlines didn't have change fees, right? And you could just change your deal. And it took them years and years and years. And the other ones have gone in there. Southwest Airlines does not charge for baggage fees. It's included in there. So you will see that influence. You see that in the telecom industry with T-Mobile started doing some really cool things and the other industries with it. I keep going back to this to say to you that the marketplace does work. The one
Yeah.
pressure that works is financial pressure, right? If you now start going to my competitor, I will have no choice but to copy my competitor and bring my status services in line with what they're doing.
Mm. Well, let's move from one monopoly to another then, because you already did that. So I think let's just go with your flow just there. Internet and cable companies. So
Oh my God.
they have a monopoly, just like this is my area, go away kind of thing. You said, quote, these companies have kneecapped their competition. Your congressional representative has helped them make their options limited. For most zip codes in America, the competition is usually between a bullet to the head, Comcast and their ilk, or Poison, AT&T and their ilk, which tickled me a lot. But you're completely right. It's kind of like, well, there's nothing forcing them to even have competition. If you don't have competition, why do you care?
Right. Right. And you're on to why, I always pick on this industry. The truth of the matter is, every industry has competition. Very few that don't, right? I can think food, water, and shelter. What I mean by that is, it's happening rather slowly, but your satellite internet, your your fiber, it's coming in, but it's coming in slowly. That's why you see me give advice to the audience, right to your congressman. This one is so rigged, it's even beyond just in the four walls of corporate America. But there's also another competition. You know, I know that my son thinks we will die, but we could just not have internet, right? My teenager probably thinks that we might as well just all jump off the ledge and
I,
back for
I,
the day.
I think
But
I'm with your teenager.
oh, yeah, so and then you've got 5G and all that. I say this to say that it is so, 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 so true. And any sort of improvements we've seen, it's been because of some forced competition, some over-the-air competition. Um, my internet company, right, now wants to offer me cell phones, and my cell phone companies now wants to offer me more data than my deal. So that's where we're seeing some of the things around the margin. But let's do it to a different level of evil. You have a company that tells you that your internet is down, they're going to be there, and they would say, hey, listen, we'll be there between 3 to 5 p.m. And you and I hear that thinking that means, okay, between 3 to 5, this problem would be solved. And what do? By 4:59, they call you and say, we are here now. So what they've really done is they've tied up your life from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. if you are lucky, right? But in this clever way, you're giving me this window when let's get real here. What I heard and what you were communicating to me was that between 3 to 5, my stuff will be working. Not that I will be here till 7, 8 p.m. I could go on and on. It's sort of the practices that make no sense. But I think for the first time, at least in my lifetime, it is looking like competition is coming. It's not because our Congress people and our crooked politicians have begun to straighten their ways. It is instead because there's all competition coming from unexpected areas that's making them having to realize, okay, maybe I do have some choices, not great choices, but there's more and more choices that are coming onto the market now.
And that's where you can start exercising your buying power.
Exactly.
And what is it like? Obviously, we've been talking about customer service, so I'm guessing if you call them, you'll be waiting in a queue. But what is it specifically that makes these ISPs like bad? Like, why is it that they feel that they can get away with it?
Yeah. So, aside from the competition piece, which we've already talked about, let's really focus on the viewpoint and the customer behavior, right? So if you think about where should a cable or internet service provider put their money, let me come for the customer for a second, right? There is a game that goes on that we all play along. And if we stopped, I wonder if we'll get different outcomes. I today don't know the fair value of cable or internet services because it's all games. What do I mean by that? They'll say, hey, Shauna, if you're a brand new customer, I will give you this price for this long to switch from your provider. And then when you do, and then at some point but basically it's a principle that says I would treat my existing customers worse and lure the new ones in and treat them better. You were an idiot for being loyal to me, so you will pay the most prices, and I would get new suckers, and we would repeat the cycle. But if you just pause and think about it, the cycle only works because we play along. This means that we are churning as well, which means that today I pick company A. Company A screws me over. They show me their deal. Then company B says, "Hey, I'm all saying that that guy's looking pretty good." I go to that company, sign up for their services, and then 2 years go by. You know what? Let me go back to those guys. They weren't that terrible after all. And we just keep this cycle of that encourages the behavior. If, on the other hand, if what we genuinely want is that I want to be treated and rewarded for my loyalty, not punished for it. I don't want to get to my mailbox and find out that you're giving new customers, right, the same service for a lower price than I'm getting it. In essence, telling me I'm stupid for staying with you this long, then maybe and so the only way to really do that is that whole practice will stop, right? Yeah. We actually said we wanted fair pricing. I have hope that this is possible because one of the things, and I'm sharing what's from the insider's point of view, is even when one of the companies goes, Amas, you are correct, what everyone is scared of is their competition. So if company A does it and the customers are still falling for that deal, then they'll fall behind that deal. So they kind of need parity. But they're always pioneers in the industry. One company that gives me hope is take T-Mobile. T-Mobile, the cell phone industry does exactly what I described they used to. And now that has gone down significantly because T-Mobile just came out and no gimmicks at one point and just said, we're going to offer this price year round. Right. And they suffered for a while. And then over time, they just started stealing share from their competitions. And now all of them copied T-Mobile. They don't do the games anymore that says, we will give you a cheaper price for being new and what have you. And it's because T-Mobile forced them to, because we, the customers, rewarded T-Mobile for it. If we did not reward T-Mobile for it, T-Mobile would have had to go join them or go out of business. But we rewarded T-Mobile's good behavior, and so the rest of them all had to follow suit, or T-Mobile will keep taking their market share from them. Therein lies the power of the consumers and their pocketbooks.
You actually just reminded me something because I completely forgot about T-Mobile. T-Mobile was here too. It's no longer here. I think it got bought out and it came another company. They merged. But everyone was on T-Mobile at one point. We all had like free calls, and you can buy a 7-day pass, and you can just keep going. And everybody switched, and then everybody started doing more deals because they wanted to bring their customers back. So I completely forgot that happened. Maybe because T-Mobile doesn't exist here anymore. But one thing that our government have just introduced quite recently was that companies are no longer allowed to offer new customers cheaper pricing than existing customers. And when I say recently, I mean literally last few months. Do you reckon something like that's going to make a difference?
Yeah, but the fact that happened, I didn't realize that was happening then. But the fact that
really
happened tells you, like why there's a need for what I'm doing, right? It's like, if it is so bad, if it's a common sense, common good gets to the point that Congress, or in your case, Parliament or whoever, passes a law, right, tells you it's gone too far. So absolutely, those kinds of interventions can work, but I usually prefer that it's done by the free market first, and not for any other reason, just because it's more effective and it's more standing. But yes, I mean, if it gotten to that place, but it's a common sense thing. It makes no sense to punish people for staying with you, because those are your cheaper customers. You don't have to convince them. They're already with you, right? The grass is greener where you water it, right? It's not just it's green on the other side of the street because they're watering it. That's all it is. There's no magic to where it is. So now, of course, those things will have an impact.
I think that they'll find another way around it, quite frankly. I feel like they put legislation in, and then they'll just find a way to go behind it. So we'll see. Maybe we'll come back next year and see whether or not it worked out. I actually had a renewal up for my car insurance. And I went online and I looked at it, and it turned out online that the company that I was with was the cheapest. So I gave them a call and I said, I want to change some things on my insurance. And I gave them the same details they put online. And they came back with a price £100 more than what I saw online. Now, obviously, I'm going to be like, okay, so I'll just buy it online then. But he had to kind of be like, well, we'll offer you that, because what can we do? But he wanted to charge me £100 more to stay and renew my contract. And put it this way, I'm not with them anymore. I want to talk about grocery stores. You talked about Walmart a lot, and we mentioned in our last episode that Walmart over here, they owned the brand Asda, which was the same. Now, we have a number of different levels of what we call supermarkets. So we have our like Asda's, which is super cheap, and then we move up to like our Aldi's and Tesco's, and what we have here, which is like a little bit cheap. And then you kind of get to the point where you're at like Waitrose or M&S, which is a bit more expensive, and you get varying service.
Yeah, we do too.
There. How does that do the variations between the levels of grocery stores play out over there?
Yeah, I think there used to be varying degrees of service, depending on what kind of grocery stores you had. I mean, you could go to places where they would, load your car and they'll do all of those things. I think that now, they are all fairly similar when you focus on customer service. Now I couldn't tell you the quality of eggs because I don't know. So I suspect, some of the chickens got massages and some did not, and they were just in the deal. There's levels of things that's not my domain expertise. But beyond that, I mean, some of the stores have carpeting and are cleaner than others. Okay, some smell nicer, But when you get to the service part, which is what I care about, they all have self-checkout. Yes, some of them will give you a ladder to go to the warehouse and go get your own supplies, and some won't. but but in essence, it's you walk in, you get your own stuff. They all have self checkout. Yes, you're going to tell me some of them have a few more cashiers than others. Okay. And maybe some of the employees have, are downright rude, and some are a tiny bit more friendly. Okay. But there isn't a big divide anymore. I think the grocery store experience, whether I'm in Whole Foods, which people sort of think, pre-Amazon bought them, Sprouts and those guys, or I'm at Walmart, or I'm at Aldi's, and that they have the very basic structure. Where you see the huge differences is around the products themselves, the brands, the pricing, those
Not
kinds
really
of
the
things. So
customer service.
yes, so what that really now then means is, from a marketplace of expectation, it actually allows the higher end shops to get away with a little more, because now it's even standard. In fact, I was talking to an executive in this deal who's twisted themselves into a pretzel and told me customers prefer to bag their own groceries and prefer to do any of that. And he has some survey data to prove it. And so him and I had this conversation where I had to break it down to go, yes, if my choices are wait in line for an hour or go bag my own damn groceries myself, of course, the bagging my own groceries is more palatable. But you're asking the wrong question. You asked me that if I could go in there and there'll be a cashier there who would take care of these things for me, I would absolutely prefer that if I'm buying anything more than 10 items. Yes, if I had one or two items, sure, it's situational, but you've taken that choice away from me because I cannot remember the last time I had a human cashier, right? Because to the extent there was a human, there was a line from here to God knows where, and I just said, F it, I'll just go do it myself. So I have not seen the varying divides, as big of a divide as there used to be between grocery chains.
You are on to the same track as me. I've been wanting to ask you about the kind of automations that they've been putting into grocery stores, but more importantly, Amazon's kind of new way of literally just not having checkout at all, and you just take it off the shelves. Even some of the shops over here are trying to implement that as well, because where they've kind of opened the first one in the UK now. Do you reckon that's going to boom? And it's got you don't really need to speak to anyone at all. You don't have cashiers, you don't have baggers. You literally just walk out the store.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, from doing my work with executives around the world for over 2 decades, this is the Maslow's law of customer service, right? Humans, right? Let's start humans, which executives are like, humans cost money. They want days off, they want benefits. Yeah. And then you have what's sort of called a blend of human and technology, right? So put some technology on the front end to do some of the humans' work, and then they're there, which they love. But what really gets them really excited is when you eliminate any human from the equation at all. And it's now all automated, because it means I buy it once, and the technology never gets tired, wants a day off, whines, complains, files sexual harassment, doesn't do any of that.
Doesn't need to pee.
Go on and go on and go on and go on and go on. So if your question is if we're getting to the place where, just walking in that is for sure going to be more prevalent. And you'll start to see it even on the back end, on the return side of the equation, which can still be very manual. You'll see that also begin to change.
I suppose everybody's a little bit scared that a robot will come over and take their job. Grocery stores are just the newest on the chopping line, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think I read someone said, I'm paraphrasing, that remote work and technology, will continue to eat at white collar jobs in the same way as globalization did to blue collar jobs. So I want you to just close your eyes and imagine this. Now that we're in this world where we can use VR and AR and digital twin in, an omniverse and metaverse, we want to do it, but um, I am already cooking up for a client who said to me to go crazy, and what I'm trying to figure out is what would it look like, right? So in this environment, they need eyes and ears and hands in this location. So what we're now talking about is, so imagine a warehouse type. So you have a robot there, and then I can have someone halfway around the world to effectively get in the robot suit to go execute the task, because that's been the last mile. Like I could see the thing, I could but now I want to be able to touch it. I want to be halfway around the world and I want to start touching it, right? It's like we're already seeing that in medical deal, right? Where a surgeon that's not physically here is operating on a patient. Now it's something beginning to think about in service, right? Where instead of hiring people to work at this warehouse, step one is I can hire people to sit at home to control these robots to do this. And then eventually I don't even need to hire those people anymore because the robot can do it themselves. So we are for sure entering then. We're talking about AI and voice, even on the telephone system. They can do sentiment analysis. I am shocked at how much it has gone. I'm looking at some data sets that's comparing humans and an AI trained bot's ability to recognize when someone's mad, sad, etc. And it's getting scary. So I know executives really well, and they are getting crazy excited when they think about no human at all, because nothing eats at the bottom line that human beings do.
I mean, I'm a big fan of automation. I'm happy for things to do for me, do things for me so I don't have to. So I'm not one of those people that are crazy scared. It's just like, yay. But the fact, if things like supermarkets are moving towards automation, then, sorry, grocery stores for you guys, we have supermarkets over here. If they are moving towards automation, what motivation do they have to make the customer service experience better if they plan on kind of moving to a place where they're scaling back the human interaction anyway?
Yeah, so we need to separate bad automations from good automation. This is not a singling out of automation, but I think though the task is still to humanize the experience. That's where some companies miss. So at the end of the day, your customers want a human experience. The real question is, can that human experience be delivered by 100% human only? 90% human, 10% technology, 10% human, 90% technology. That's really what we are talking about here. But the experience that they're trying to get is still human. So it's a race against, can I generate synthetic human experience using technology? Can I synthesize it? Can I mock? And we know the answer to that is yes, if the task is rote. If the task is, I want to withdraw $20, I want to check my balance. There's no emotion to those tasks. I want to buy this. The next frontier now is, I want to call in and I want to have a conversation where I am cursing, where I'm angry, when I'm mad, when I'm talking about really complex things. Can we get AI and technology, right, that human enough to understand the nuances, the idioms, and all of those things? And the answer to that today is kind of, right? So the race we are on, the human race we are on, is how better is technology at getting there for us. But also there's another part to this as well. It's not just the technology. It's also, I was having a conversation with my son who's going to college next year. We were talking last night coming back home from a Thanksgiving dinner about remote work. And one of the things I expressed to him is I said, like, hey, listen, if remote work has a potential to actually bring down wages in IT, and he looked at me like a guy, and I go, like, today, right, when I'm looking to hire developers and engineers, I've got to pay them lots and lots of money because they can only hire so many deals. If you close your eyes and imagine I can hire engineers and developers from anywhere in the world, again, there's some barriers that are there to government, et cetera. But put all that aside, technologically, anywhere in the world. So all of a sudden, what makes an engineer so in high demand, what makes engineers make a lot of money in the United States, because there's very few of them, right? There's over 1 billion people in India, and a statistically high number of them are engineers. And I can go on and on in other parts of the world that has the potential to bring down costs. So my point to you is a company's only mission is not to eliminate humans necessarily, it's to bring down cost.
Yeah.
Whether that's be cheaper humans or technology, that's ultimately in some cases where they're going. But in the end, the person who makes the decision is the customer, like you and I. We will ultimately vote and get the customer service we deserve. Plain and simple, the one we continuously try to pay for, because every time another company is going to come in and try, maybe someone will pay for service. And if we support that company, we would raise the bar. If we ignore that company, then we have voted that this is what we want. We always get the government we want. It's like the people who said, America is not a Trump country. Of course it is, right? America, you might not, but in the end, we get the customer service we get the government we want, because we continue to vote for it with our wallet, or in that case with actual votes.
I want to leave it on government services because I could talk about that for a whole nother episode. So I think I'm going to. And I'm going to leave it here for today, but can't wait to pick this up next time. Thank you again, as always.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Talk soon.
And see you next time.